It's been 22 years since Pokemon Red and Blue first captured our hearts and our parents' wallets. Featuring some of the most addictive gameplay loops, memorable characters, and remarkably immersive worlds in gaming to date, it's no surprise the franchise is still kicking harder than a Hitmonlee on leg day. But just what keeps that familiar formula from becoming stale after so many years? Hi, I'm Cristal from The Leaderboard, and we're taking a journey through the evolution of one of gaming's most prolific franchises. Gotta catch 'em all. To catch them is my real test. Hey, it's a powerful phrase that any trainer worth their salt understands all too well. The quest to diligently fill the professor's Pokédex is at the heart of any Pokemon experience, so it's important to know just how many of the little buggers are roaming around out there. If you've been living under a Geodude for the past few decades, there are now a whopping 807 Pocket Pals to collect, more than 5 times the original count of 151 during Red and Blue's debut. While the original 151 mostly looked like mashups of familiar plants and animals, like Matchup, who's pretty much a hybrid of Salamander and your little brother, or Tangela, a sentient heap of vines. The newer Pokemon are a little more fanciful, taking the shape of double-scooped ice cream cones, haunted household appliances, and everything in between. The fun doesn't stop there, as future generations continue to shower Gen 1ers with all kind of love. Not only did we get pre-evolutions for some of the game's lesser appreciated mons, but studs like Rhydon, Onix, and more eventually got that coveted third evolution, finally making them more viable in competitive play. Few could forget X and Y's edition of Mega Evolutions, which gave many fan favorites a temporary, super-powered fourth evolution, not to mention the Alola region's many alternate forms for beloved Pokemon. Who'd have thought catching Rattatas in the early game could actually feel fresh again? The cream of the crop, though, have historically always been those coveted legendary Pokemon, either slapped on the game's cover or hidden deep in epic side quests. Each and every Pokemon game released to date offers a handful of these beautiful beasts, from a trio of elemental birds in Red Blue to the Ultra Beasts in Ultra Sun and Moon. But who's the most difficult legendary to catch? Event Pokemon, exclusively available at local events and retailers dating as far back as 1996 with Mew in Red and Blue. Of course, these days the rarest of Pokemon aren't necessarily the limited time event mon hiding at your local GameStop. That's right, we're talking about those gleaming sirens of seduction, shinies. From Gen 2 onwards, Pokemon caught in the wild have an extremely small chance of spawning with completely different coloring. Just how small of a chance, you ask?
A live shiny Ponyta in my leaf green version.
Try 1 in 8,192, but mercifully, more recent generations caught the odds in half. Sure, the benefits of shiny Pokemon are purely cosmetic, but that didn't stop me from crying when my first ever shiny Ghastly avoided capture by cursing itself into oblivion. Needless to say, trainers who've just gotta catch 'em all in the year 2018 definitely have their work cut out for them, especially with the announcement of a new batch of beasts on the horizon come 2019's Nintendo Switch release. Here's hoping we hit 1,000. The very best, like no one ever was. Okay, I'm gonna stop that. If training's more your cause, you'll be interested to know just how much Pokemon's battle system has evolved over the generations. Believe it or not, but the core gameplay hasn't changed much since those 8-bit days. Trainers still control up to 6 of their favorite Pokemon in single-turn combat, each of which has a handful of moves for kicking some Pokemon tail. So what exactly changed over time? Mostly tweaks and balances to the battle system already in place. The addition of Nature's and Eevee training in earlier generations helped ensure 2 of the same Pokemon stats were rarely ever the same, and the introduction of passive abilities, hold items, and dual typing provided new strategic depth to previously tried-and-true tactics. Sun and Moon even introduced rare items known as bottle caps for completely maxing out a weaker Pokemon's fixed stats, known as IVs. And the strategic enhancement doesn't stop there. 3 new Pokemon types, Dark, Steel, and Fairy, eventually entered the fray, adding more complexity to super effective moves and many Mon's weaknesses. Not to mention one of the most fear and fancy evolutions to ever grace the game. The special stat introduced in Gen 1 was also eventually split in 2, completely altering a Pokemon's offensive and defensive capabilities. Some games put the occasional spin to the one-on-one formula, spearheaded spearheading the series. Double battles commonly made the cut ever since their introduction in Gen 3, pitting two of a trainer's Pokemon simultaneously against an opponent's double team. Rotation battles proved another variation, this time brought in during the 5th generation, which featured teams of 3 taking turns on spinning boards and swapping frontline attackers and defenders on a whim. Without a doubt, and despite being labeled for kids, the Pokemon series clearly has one of the most robust battle systems around. A firm understanding of how all these mechanics work together proves crucial for trainers serious about competitive play. Which leads us to our next topic: the birds and the Beedrills. Whether eagerly trying to fill in those missing Pokédex entries or looking to train the most fearsome of fighters, the Daycare Center is a vital resource in every Poketrainer's playbook. Breeding in particular, which was first introduced in Gold and Silver, went through a number of changes over the years. For one, the system's debut gave birth to the very first pre-evolutions of the series, including Pichu, Elekid, and Smoochum. Depending on the stats of the parent Pokemon, clever trainers can influence the stats of their offspring, giving them a competitive edge when battling friends, family, and foes alike. Best of all, making battle-hardened Mons has only become easier over time. Most notably, and as of X and Y, equipping the Destiny Knot item on either parent Pokemon guaranteed the transfer of 5 IVs total from either parent to the baby. In this way, constantly swapping out parents for genetically superior babies will eventually yield the strongest Pokepals this series has to offer, as long as you're cool with a little inbreeding. Oh, come on, like you've never seen an episode of Game of Thrones before. Alright, gonna take a quick second to tell you that not only do I like games, but I like anime too. And if you like anime too, hey, you're gonna want to check out our sister channel, Get in the Robot. Subscribe so you can watch me talk about Gun Gale Online, Food Wars, Seraph of the End, frickin' Code Geass R3 whenever it comes out, and of course, all the Yuri on Ice sexy pork cutlet bowls ever. A world we must defend. Let's face it, Pokemon games aren't typically known for their riveting narratives, especially in earlier games. Players typically follow in the running shoes of a rookie Poketrainer, battling gyms, and rising the ranks of the Elite Four to ultimately test their strength against the region's Pokemon champion. Sure, every now and then, the occasional cultist tries to sideswipe your adventure with visions of world-ending grandeur, but for the most part, you're just a kid beating up other people's pets for money. Hey, where's the lie? Interestingly, it wasn't until Pokemon Cristal that a much greater emphasis was placed on the game's token legendary tying into the story. They even started getting their own unique theme songs. It's also safe to say both Sun and Moon and their Ultra sequels took a lot more liberties when it came to telling their stories, thanks in large part to its more intimate cast and meaningful relationships formed with the inhabitants of Alola. You'd think an adventure tailored around the Pokemon you choose to align yourself with would have plenty of customization options for your trainer too, right? Well, surprisingly, it wasn't until just 5 years ago in Pokemon X and Y that players could change the trainer's style, let alone alter basic features like skin tone or hairstyle. In fact, you couldn't even swap something as standard as gender until Pokemon Crystal's release back in 2001. Super trades and transfers. Trading has long since been an integral feature to the Pokemon experience, to the point that each and every Pokemon game has multiple versions to purchase. The logic? Money. Each comes packing exclusive Pokemon not available in the other. Back in the 90s, this concept of encouraging player interaction via trading was revolutionary, helping spread Pokemon fever by bringing players together to either complete their respective Pokédexes or test their skills in the heat of battle, technology permitting, of course. Back in the early days of monster collecting, players needed a physical game link cable to initiate trades and battles, which, as you can imagine, provided a spacious 3 feet between both players. It wouldn't be until the days of the DS that trainers could finally cut the cord and connect with other players wirelessly, not to mention via the wonders of the World Wide Web. Transferring your Pokemon, on the other hand, proved no simple task either, typically proving pretty difficult back in the day. Most games required you play time-consuming minigames, not to mention set restrictions on how many Mons could be transferred per day. Thankfully, today the wonders of cloud saving via Pokebank proves a trainer's best friend, assuming you don't mind paying a small fee for the privilege. For a modest $5 a year, trainers can store up to 3,000 Pokemon in the cloud for easy access via any of the 3DS Pokemon titles: XY, ORAS, SM, USUM. It even supports the Virtual Console releases of Red, Blue, and Gold Silver. Just think, centuries from now, archaeologists will be able to decipher exactly which Eevee you evolved and what goofy name you gave your starter as a child. My Charmander was called Flamethrower. Super original. Beauty and battle cries. Visually speaking, Pokemon games have come a long way, from their monochromatic 8-bit origins to the three-dimensional pixel-pushing powers of the Nintendo 3DS. Each generation has brought with it appreciably greater graphics, breathing new life into each of its many sprightly species. The art direction and animation in Ultra Sun and Moon in particular boast some of the best visuals the series has to offer, coming fairly close to the actual anime and usurped only by the upcoming Switch spin-offs Let's Go, Eevee, and Pikachu. Oddly, the same advances cannot be said for one small subsector of the series' sound design. More specifically, and as generations pass, the battle cries of new Pokemon sound more refined and realistic, while those of earlier generation Pokemon retain the electronic beeps and boops of their forefathers. In fact, it was only recently with Pokemon Sun and Moon that the original 151 received minor tweaks and balances to their sound bites. Mobile monsters. No analysis on the evolution of Pokemon would be complete without addressing the donphan in the room. Pokemon Go. Up until the summer of 2016, the Pokemon franchise had been exclusively tied to Nintendo platforms. That all changed with the series' mobile debut, which reignited the staple gotta catch 'em all mantra to a much more casual audience. More than just a sneaky way to give today's youth a little sunshine and exercise, its simple premise and creative use of augmented reality quickly ignited a cultural phenomenon that was hard not to get swept up in. It didn't hurt either that it encouraged social interaction and community exploration. It's no wonder November's upcoming Nintendo Switch adventures Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu and Eevee take great inspiration from Pokemon Go, right down to the motion control capture mechanics. While technically not a core entry in the Pokemon series, the game also serves as a remastering for 1998's Pokemon Yellow version, tasking players with battling familiar gym leaders like Brock and Misty throughout the Kanto region to once again become the best there ever was. As such, don't expect Professor Oak to be tossing the holy trinity of Kanto starters your way. Depending on which version you choose, players will be given either Pikachu or Eevee to bond with, who tag alongside your adventure outside the confines of their Pokeballs. Not only will they be more expressive than your average Beware, but can even be dressed up in adorable outfits. If for some reason you don't feel particularly attached to your chosen version's poster child, they can always be benched for one of the dozens of Snorlaxes clogging up your Pokemon Go boxes. Thanks to the wonders of modern technology, any and all Pokemon native to the Kanto region, including their Alolan forms, can be transferred to Pokemon Let's Go, which should help take the sting off of snagging any version exclusives. Speaking of, to date, it's been confirmed that Oddish, Sandshrew, and Growlithe will only appear in Let's Go Pikachu, while Bellsprout, Vulpix, and Meowth will be sticking it out with Eevee. Time to hit the pavement! As any Go player knows, Pokemon hunting is more fun with a friend. Thankfully, Let's Go aims to capture some of that magic via drop-in, drop-out co-op multiplayer. Despite Player 2 serving in much more of a support role, there's something undeniably intuitive about shaking in a second Joy-Con to have a friend catch Pokemon and battle NPCs together. Another first for the series debut on the Nintendo Switch marks the first time a Pokemon RPG will grace our television screens, thanks to the system's dual functionality as both a handheld and home console. We know what you're thinking. No, the Stadium and Coliseum games don't count. While there's sure to be plenty of surprises in store when the next evolution in Pocket Monster collecting swarms onto Switch, there's at least one thing we can all safely predict: endless debates over which starter is the cutest. Thanks for watching, folks. Anyway, I'm Cristal. See you in the next one, and don't forget to subscribe and join our notification squad. Bye, guys.